everyone. Karen Warden with Film Courage, the radio show, outside the studio after an awesome interview with half of the filmmaking duo of the Polish brothers, Michael Polish, and their composer, Kubilay Uner, for Lovers Only. And we talked a little bit about some of the pros of using the 5D.
Right.
You were able to walk around France and
Right.
be very inconspicuous and shoot this film, and you just appeared as a wedding photographer or something.
Yeah.
But let's talk about some of the drawbacks of the camera.
You know, for
If there
instance,
aren't.
maybe this moire, you know, that'll be a drawback, that some things do moire on this camera. So maybe this is going to be one. If this moires, that'll tell you about the first drawback to that camera. You know, it is a digital format, so it does have its limitations in the way that digital always has, where the highs and the lows of the, you know, it's very hot. It's the depth of field is extremely deep, and so you're trying to, everything these digital cameras try and do is try and be like film. They're not film. It's one of those things where you're always trying to make it look like film, but they're around so many. There's so many different looks now that people are getting used to this look of a 5D or digital look, so it's becoming its own thing that people are embracing. It's not so much a film format anymore, trying to be film. I would say the biggest drawback to this camera is just always trying to make it look great. Always trying to make it, the best thing about this camera is the low light situation, is you can go into places with very, very low light, and I would say that would be the best thing a filmmaker can have right now, is going into places and not needing as much light.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and you had mentioned that it was great too, because in France there were so many places that just had all natural light,
Yeah,
so it
right.
was just perfect.
Yeah.
Can you tell us some interesting sort of stories of the road when it came to shooting?
I think Gooby was talking about his favorite shot.
Yeah, there's a shot in the beginning of the film when Yves, Mark's character, walks through Paris kind of lost in his funk, and just he's supposed to take pictures. And he walks down this alley of trees, and you know, and in the middle of it, it's clearly overcast because there are no shadows. And then as he's walking, all of a sudden, as if somebody turned on like tens of thousands of watts of lights, all these light spots come through the leaves of the trees as the cloud disappears from the sky, and light him up, and really, really underscore just how forlorn his character is in that moment, how lost in this place. And anyway, if I had one of those, you can put it on the wall, digital frames, that would be the loop that I would have in my digital frame. It's a great shot.
Yeah, that's one of those moments where you go, you don't even know you're getting it, because you're running around Paris, whether you're on a motorcycle or you're in a sports car, you're following Yves around Paris. When he walks through there, it's he did it one or two times. I don't see that shot until we get back, and I go, whoa. Actually, you don't see the clouds, you don't see the sun, you just see these trees light up. And that's magic that, I've done seven, 8 movies, and I don't remember anything happening quite like that. Maybe on North Fork a couple times, but
So it's
really
nice.
yeah.
Happy accident.
Yeah, happy accident.
Uh-huh.
Well, I would assume that it's great when you have a camera that you by design can just run the whole time, and that you obviously increase your incidence of habit accidents just because it keeps
your magic
running.
possibilities.
Yeah. And I know that when you score the film, you sort of like get to learn every once in a while. There's a scene where you just know, oh my God, this was one where the camera was just running, and there's like a little look or something that just sort of happens, and that then in the right context and editing, all of a sudden gets all this meaning. You would have never caught it if you had just rehearsed the scene with a 10-minute film cassette.
There's a big percentage of For Lovers Only where it's about Mark and Stana waiting or sitting around or talking about the scene, and I'm photographing them. Stuff in bed where they're either getting ready or we're talking about the scene. I'm continually shooting them. So he's touching her hair.
Right.
She's fixing the pillow. They're laughing. They're talking about what we ate last night or where we're gonna go for lunch. Talking about Paris. So there's a lot of in-between moments that camera's able to catch without saying, okay, we're ready, action. And that's probably why the intimacy of For Lovers Only works so well.
Mm-hmm. Very natural.
Mm-hmm.
I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about what are the secrets to a good working relationship, because this is not your first project together.
Right.
So in a marriage, it's always don't go to bed angry and things
Yeah.
like that. So what?
We show that.
You
Yeah,
show
we
that
don't
too?
get mad
Okay.
angry.
That was our first rule.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
start going to bed, don't go to bed angry.
So we never sleep.
Yeah.
Okay.
For me, it is actually like a marriage. You pick the right partner. That's the biggest one, and there is an affinity in the way that Mike and Mark tell stories. That an affinity that I have with the way that Mike and Mark tell stories. So it's. I honestly don't believe much in quote unquote working on relationships. They either work or they don't. And but obviously the one thing that I can have with Mike and Mark is absolute trust. When you writing music for film is a lot like acting. The longer I do it, the more I realize that. And and actors talk a lot about how they have to be able to trust the filmmaker. And for me, it's really the same thing. So for me, then it becomes a process of really understanding the story. And that goes way beyond any verbal level. I'm learning what are we doing here? That's my entire job. And I just, they have a way of conveying that makes sense to me. Sometimes it takes 5 tries, but they're always fun tries. And so that to me is really the biggest thing. It's a trust relationship, and I can trust those guys.
Yeah. I mean, I would say having gone to the same school helped a lot. Going to Cal Arts helped a lot because to be in that school, there's an inherent nature that you have, an articulation that you have with another artist that you look at. You look at Cal Arts and you look at it as basic training. There's a training there that we have a commonality of how artists speak to each other, and there's a razor's edge that we really, really understand. What I really like about Kubi is that the inventiveness, that always trying to find something new, and having him fail is the best thing because it comes to something else. He never stops. He never ever stops working, and that to me just says we're going to get there. We're going to get to the place that everybody's happy.
And for me, actually, I really love the process of failing when you work with a good filmmaker, because my first attempt is always what I would do, and it's always pretty much the best of what I would do with a certain situation, a certain story, and so every step after that is something that I had no idea was a possibility. It still comes from me. Obviously, they don't say make the oboe play an E flat. But it goes to the much more important level, which is the underlying, the subtext, the emotional content, the energy, the pacing, all these things. So step 2, 3, 4, 5, however many it takes, are things that I wouldn't have done initially. Otherwise, they would have been in draft 1. And so once I'm done with those 5 drafts, they're all mine. All these new ideas, all these new ways of looking at the situation, of reading this character, of reading the motion through the frame or whatever, they become mine. And so it's really a very parasitic relationship as a composer, but I really like it because I get to amplify my storytelling in my medium. And I guess it's the same for everybody who works in any kind of collaborative, 2 actors working together feed off of each other, and then they walk away twice the actor that they were before this. And so in a good situation, I really enjoy the process of rewriting, as long as you have enough time, and as long as you have collaborators where you go, I really like the way they go about this. I'm a fan of their films, otherwise it wouldn't work. But since I am a fan, it's really a great situation.